Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Cowan. I'm the founder of Big Star Lights. I've been in this business, for those who don't know me, I've been in this business for a while, in the industry for a while. Um, I've I started off in an installation with my own installation company as a side hustle, as most businesses start, and quickly found out I was not able to get very good quality lights, and so I started to source my own product. And I have an engineering background. I was able to apply those skills, and quickly found out that it was working because I live in a very wet environment, and which is unique. And so a lot of other installation companies took notice. This is 16 years ago, and they wanted the same lights. So we started to sell to them as well. And that's how Big Star Lights was formed. We now import and distribute lights throughout North America, mostly to professional installation companies. My role in the company is mostly in product development. I look at some, do some big picture stuff, but a lot of my focus and passion is around product development. So if you have comments, feedback, anything related to product, it usually makes its way to me, and we start incorporating that into the engineering and constantly come out with new products all the time. Got really excited for a new clip coming out here this year. Things like that. A lot of stuff made in house. But so I've been involved in the industry for a long time. Still involved in the Christmas light installation company from an arm's length. And so I have a lot of experience with commercial sales, because as your business matures, it'll eventually get into it'll organically transition into doing more and more commercial work. And um, there's big numbers involved, and it's not unheard of to do six-figure contracts. What you say, the $100,000 contract, that could be 50 residential customers. Think about how much administration 50 customers are compared to one commercial customer. So a tree is a tree. It doesn't matter if it's on a residential or a commercial space or a roof line. It's the same work, same rates generally, just a lot easier to manage and a lot more scalable. You throw a lot more bodies on the job, and you can have one really strong lead running it, and it will become really profitable for you. So let's dive into how we scale this part of our business. We're going to cover who these commercial customers are. We're going to talk about what they want, like get under their skin. What do they really care about? Because that's how you're going to connect with them. And then we're going to talk about how to actually reach out to them, because they're a little mysterious. They're sometimes hidden behind multiple layers or gates. And then we're going to talk about how to actually win them. And then we'll get into some product and design ideas, mostly around trees, buildings. We'll talk about the illuminated sculptures, which is becoming more and more popular. These are great, what I call flywheel products. Often, if you sell one of these, it's going to result in a lot of trees or roof lines as well. And then we'll talk about destination displays. So these are displays that people after dinner with their family go to look at Christmas lights. It can be at a mall, it can be at a park, it can be at a hotel, it can be at a seawall. People that go to a site to see lights. So there's opportunity there. At the end, I want to save a few slides here for the gotchas and other tips. These are things I've lost tens of thousands of dollars on over the years, and I don't want to see you lose that same money. And so we'll talk about those, and we'll have a bit of time at the end for questions as well. So what's the opportunity here? Well, the opportunity is to decorate for shopping plazas, malls. Hotels are really popular, are getting into lights more. Restaurants as well went through a bit of a slump there around COVID when restaurants weren't doing very well, but that's since bounced back. Golf courses are hosting more and more holiday parties, so they want to decorate their entrances and attract corporate events and things like that over the holidays. So there's opportunity there. Sports clubs, which include yacht clubs, tennis rowing clubs. Again, those are places that tend to host a lot of holiday events. And then municipalities, this is a huge one. This is where you start to see a lot of six-figure contracts. I've been involved in $500,000 contracts with municipalities, so there's opportunity there. And car dealerships is another one, and office complexes and outdoor spaces. So sometimes there's commercial stratas that will have a common area where they want to make nice for their tenants. Stadiums, and then of course event centers are great options too. So those are the places. Let's talk about who's making the decisions in these places, and they really fall under kind of three main categories, so three personas. This is one persona here. One persona is your property managers, marketing directors, or engineering. Property managers is kind of the name for people that manage plazas and shopping centers or stratas. Marketing directors, quite often the decision maker in malls. Shopping malls. And then sometimes the person will have an engineering title, and this is somebody that's typically at a hotel that might be director of engineering for the Fairmont, for example. But they all have one thing in common is that they are time strapped. Yeah, okay, these guys are looking, as people, guys and girls, are looking for turnkey solutions, and they're very concerned about their ROI. Often their bonuses are tied around it. They want lighting that's going to attract consumers and tenants, not just consumers, but the tenants as well. And they also prefer vendors with a proven track record. If this goes sideways on them when they work with you, they're going to be in trouble. You're going to be in trouble. Everybody's going to be in bad positions. So it doesn't help anyone. So often they'll check references as well. So start building those references and building strong relationships. They also obviously expect a certain amount of professionalism, very clear communication. Again, they don't have time, so they don't want to spend a lot of energy figuring things out, and problem solving things. Also, they appreciate simplicity in the solutions. So so that means that how you communicate and how you present your quote needs to be simple. The quote also needs to be simple. They associate complexity with budget overruns and just overall disappointment. So, and confused customers don't buy. Just like residential, commercial customers, if they're confused, they're not going to buy as well. Their pain points are tight budgets. They've got a lot of pressure from tenants, maybe from upper management, comes from Adam from both directions. They've got a high expectation for aesthetics as well. And so quite often, they do have a lot of attention to detail, despite how busy they are. But obviously it needs to look really good. And they just don't have the time to manage these extra projects. So that's why they've come to you to hire as the expert. So that's one persona. Again, your property managers, marketing directors, and engineering. We have another one called, these are your merchant associations. So these are a little bit different people. They are very mission driven, where they want to enhance public spaces and benefit local businesses. So they're benefiting a lot of people, and they're juggling a lot of stakeholders. So there's a lot of back and forth. These are probably your more difficult sales, because they need to go to committees, and then decisions need to be made there, and then it'll come back to you. And so there's a lot of meetings, but they need to appeal to the masses. So often you're gravitating towards your warm white color. And they're also a lot tighter budget. They're very budget conscious. But of course, they're willing to invest in that high quality. Maybe they've had bad experiences with lights that have burnt out on them before, because they either tried to do it themselves, or maybe they went to a big box store and had a bad experience with lights from there. So they're looking for a solution. And they also appreciate some guidance. You're the experts. They'll be more swayed into making the right choices. So if you come at them with an honest feedback and great suggestions, they'll often listen to you as well. Because they really want to lean on your expertise to maximize impact. Their pain points, again, as I mentioned, limited budgets. They are balancing aesthetics with function, and then they may also be navigating some municipal regulations too, because there's a good chance that half that budget is going to be coming from the municipality. So again, it's really important to keep on budget, and then also trying to juggle the business owners' interests, because a single merchant association can have hundreds of business owners all wanting a say, which is a challenging position for them. So be sympathetic of that. The other one is the other personas in municipalities. Okay, these are very there's a lot of bureaucracy, as you can expect, with these people that they need to manage, and so there's compliance that you need to adapt to. They often will ask for UL certifications or CSA certifications, which of course we sell, or products that have those. But the decision-making process is very long, and if it's over a certain value in the neighborhood of around $50,000 or more, quite often it will need to go to an RFP process, or which stands for request for a proposal, or request for a quote sometimes. And so they'll have to compare your quote against at least two others. And obviously they're going to be budget conscious because they're reporting to council, and they're looking for that long-term value and quality. Safety is a huge concern as well. They will have people come out and check that you're following WorkSafe or OSHA guidelines. Yeah, don't be surprised if somebody comes and asks for your fall protection plan when you're working on a municipal project. They also prefer vendors with strong path performance. Again, your references are going to need to be leveraged for this as well. Once you get into one municipality, you'll find that you can reference that one, assuming the relationship was really good and the outcome was really good, will often transpire into more municipal work as well. So again, their pain points are a very slow approval process, so you need to start this now. Strict budgeting, engineering, and ensuring the compliance with city codes, and obviously minimize public complaints. So, you know, don't start parking in disabled parking stalls in order to hang lights. If you're running a lift with a diesel engine, you know, be conscious about where that exhaust is going. If it's going into air intake into the building, you're going to hear about it pretty quickly from top brass. So just watch out for those types of things. So how do you reach these people behind so many different layers of and gates, I call them? Cold calling works, but you can't just call the front desk and ask for the person in charge of Christmas lights. Come in with a name. So quite often I'll go to LinkedIn and I'll look up, say one of my target is the Fairmont in Seattle. I'll look it up and I'll search engineering Fairmont of Seattle. And a name might come up, his name's Eric. And then I'll call the front desk and be like, hey, I'm trying to send Eric an email, but it's bouncing on me. Eric in engineering. Can you confirm his email address for me? And then they'll help you with obviously giving up their email. And so that's one way to kind of, in a more sneaky way of getting an email to a decision maker in a particular establishment. So leverage LinkedIn and name drop to get access to a phone number or email, ideally. Or just show up and ask. Same thing, same conversation. Also, too, like if you start landing a commercial customer and you want more, assuming you want more commercial customers, just ask for more. Ask for more work. And not enough people leverage this in their business. Referrals are free. Referrals also have a high success rate. So if you say win your commercial job and you haven't even done the work yet, you've just you're just shaking their hand, being like, yeah, we're good to go. Then at that point, stand with them and be like, hey, do you know any other colleagues or um, in your industry, maybe it's another hotel that could benefit from Christmas lights the way that you're about to be benefiting? And they'd be like, oh yeah, my this person from the Sheraton is would benefit from Christmas lights. Um, and they might name a few others. You can ask for 5 people, and your response will be great. Here's my text. Here's my phone number. Can you text them a message right now, and then I'll take over the conversation. And then they'll send a two-way introduction right there, and then you can take over the convo from that, and that's how you get more commercial work. Again, you don't even need to have you don't even have to have the job finished. You can just simply have closed the job at that point, and you can ask for this. Another great place to get contacts is by attending trade shows for industry specifics. It could be a hospitality trade show for hotels. It could be a it can be a property management trade show. Often there's associations revolved around those industries, so reach out to them. You can even sponsor certain events that they have. And then of course joining business groups, chambers of commerce, boards of trade, BNIs. Those are all great places to make connections. And then in terms of municipalities, contact their purchasing department and ask to be put onto a list to be notified on RFPs or RFQs for decorative lighting. And if you do that, then you'll be the first to know when an opportunity comes up, and you can bid on it along with others. So how to win them? Okay, well, here, good salespeople sell futures. Everybody knows that. But great salespeople sell outcomes. Take it a step further, remarkable salespeople sell feelings. And at the end of the day, we are not selling Christmas lights, people. We are selling 2 things. We are selling a look and we are selling a convenience. And the better you're able to communicate those 2 things, and if you're able to communicate that you can deliver on those 2 things better than any other competitor, that you're going to win that job every single time. So how do we communicate a look and a convenience? Well, the best way to communicate a look is through photos. Photos are worth 1,000 words, and you'll want to have a really good photo gallery to share with them. We'll talk about that in a moment. You also want to have a very simple and clear sales process. So again, that's how you're going to communicate the convenience. And every interaction that you have with a potential commercial customer needs to have the customer feeling better. Because if they're feeling good after your initial meeting, great, you're in a really great position. That is going to lead to another meeting, and you're that much closer to having a decision made. Okay, so just don't focus on the sale. Focus on feel good at the end of the meeting. Because people don't remember what you say, they remember how you make them feel. Okay, so don't go in there selling features. Really focus on how they feel at the end of the conversation. There's some tools that can help you with this. As I mentioned, photos are worth 1,000 words, so you're going to need a really strong gallery. Mock-ups help as well, but I find that galleries with real lights on real buildings resonate a lot more. So if you see a tree that's similar to one that you've decorated before, and that's what the conversation is about, you can show them a photo of that tree all nicely decorated. The other one is as a display case. If you haven't got one of these, definitely pick one up. We sell them, and these will dramatically improve close rates. We've seen upwards of 30% improvement in close rates by rocking up to a consultation with one of these in hand, opening it up, plugging it in. You can even buy a portable power pack off of Amazon and add it to it, so you don't need to plug it in. They're like $50 on Amazon, and you can show them what the lights look like, what the color options are. There's a poster placard in there of different design options. Really great tool. And then, of course, you're going to need a really defined sales process. So make sure you can, come up with some literature that outlines that, or a follow-up email that highlights what those processes are. And then, of course, have ready references. And you're going to need $5 million of general liability insurance as well. Most commercial customers won't entertain if you have less than that. So what's that process? So you need a very clearly demonstrate what the display will look like. Photos work really well there. You're also going to clearly costs, what's included, and not in, and also what's not included. So what's included, make sure you include the installation, the removal, the storage. Make sure you explain that to them. It might seem simple to you, but they've never hired a professional custom light installer before, so they may not know how it works. So don't forget that. Also too, like if there's anything that you need from them in order to do the job, now is a good time to ask for that. Who will also explain to them who's going to own the decor. Assuming that you're using a selling model, that you explain to them that they're going to own it. If you're using a leasing model, you explain that you own it. So it's good to get that out of the way and established so there's no surprises later on. Either selling or leasing doesn't matter. Explain to them that you're going to store it for them. Often that's the best, easiest turnkey solution. Again, people want simplicity. And then of course agree on a start date and an end date. And so I always ask the question, what's the earliest date that you can install the lights? And because you want to try to get installations done as early as possible in the season. Remember, you want November, ideally November, to have a very clean schedule when you get to November, very empty schedule, because anybody can sell Christmas lights in November. So if you can get all your commercial jobs done in October, then you're going to be in great position for getting additional new clients in November. Also agree the latest date that the lights are to be uninstalled. This will help with your planning purposes and how many people you need to keep on for removals in the new year. And then obviously in your quote, you're going to need to give them an indication of what they're going to be spending in the subsequent year. So if you're using the selling model, of course, you're listing products and labor separately. You would just explain to them, look, next year it's just the labor. And if you want, you can add to your display if you've got the budget available still. So let's do a quick example quote. Let's say that we've got 100 mini light strings. And these are just example prices. These aren't actual prices. So let's say that it costs $40, or you say you're going to charge $40 to the customer. That means they're going to spend $4,000 on product. Labor probably be about $2,000, and then maybe there's some lift equipment involved. You explain to them that it's going to be about $1,200, and that will include your the transportation of the lift, fuel, etc. So the total would be $7,200 for that commercial customer. So this is just 3 line items, very, very simple. Again, confused customers don't buy. Never show your hourly rate. There's just no value proposition in that. And I always like to include removal in the labor just as a flat fee. Don't piece it out. Just people start asking questions if you start breaking this down too much. Here's an example of an installation. Let's pretend that you've been asked to quote decorating an entire street. There's 60 trees here, and there's an average of 25 strings in each tree. So that's a total of 1,500 mini light strings. That's going to be charged to the customer at $60,000. Then there's going to be the labor associated with that. Let's call that $34,000 in labor, and then about 4 weeks to install that, maybe 1 week for the removal. So we need to charge $8,500 for the equipment. So that's about a $100,000 project. Okay, pretty sweet. 6-figure project. So how does that break down? again, this is what the customer sees, but this is what you know. It's 1,500 strings. You're going to charge out $40 a string. So $60,000 here for product. Labor, I'm assuming that's the case. It costs 11 minutes per unit is what kind of the budget I'm planning for, which includes setting up what do we call it, extension cable, moving lift equipment around. So the installation will take about, if I do that math, 1,500 times 11 minutes per unit, that's 275 hours. And if I add about a 25% for the removal, that's 69 hours for that. And that's a total of 344 hours spent on the project. And if I'm going to bill out $100 an hour, that is $34,000. In terms of lift equipment, let's say we're going to charge out $1,200 a week, and plus transport plus fuel, total all that up. We'll say it's about $8,500. So you're going to charge the client a total of $100,000. Your costs are, again, these are just example pricing. This isn't the actual values. Let's say that the mini light strings cost you $20. That means you're going to fork out $29,000 for the product. You're going to have to pay $344 times $30 an hour for labor, means $10,000 for labor. And then the lift equipment, I usually like a 20% markup. I don't mark up lift equipment too much, just because you kind of want it to be in line with what your EBITDA is. So maybe it's 10, 20%. You can use something like that. And your cost of goods sold to be about $7,000. So your total cost of goods here is about 47. What's your gross profit? Typical, it's pretty similar to what your residentials are. 54%, 60%. Those are pretty typical gross profit margins in the Christmas light world. So from that one project, you're going to have a gross profit of $55,000. Okay. And again, you're only doing the administration for one customer. So it's a lot easier for you as a business owner. Something to think about are the terms of the quote. Again, like, think about how long the quote is going to be good for. Consider in that fine print that mentioning that it's just an estimate only, just in case things go sideways, prevents you from being on the hook if things go to litigation. You can also have a section on the preparation, what the client is responsible for ahead of the installation. This could be having the electrical outlets installed and working. Otherwise, it will be an added cost, because it's going to cost you if you're inconvenienced. Regarding the display, you need to be clear to them that you're going to make reasonable efforts to complete that vision, that photo that you've shown to them, whether it's written, verbal, or through pictures. And also, I like to include here that you have the right to refuse work. So if you end up quoting something that you realize, oh, the fall protection is sketch, or the ground is not safe to put a large piece of equipment on, and you can no longer do that job, it allows you to refuse that work. And the clients don't want you risking your neck on something either. So it's never been an issue to refuse work. Usually this is a creative enough business that if you can't light one area, you'll light another area. But it should be discussed also, including the terms, what happens if there is a change after the process has begun, how that's dealt with. In the terms, you should also include a warranty section that details what, when, and who's responsible for what. And also there should be a section on your limitations of liability. So again, what happens if there's damage to the property, if somebody's hurt, or if there's some sort of loss of revenue. Also needs to be outlined in the terms how they pay and when to pay, and what happens if they don't pay. So that's all outlined there. And then usually there's another term around omissions. So what happens if the customer doesn't disclose something to you that should have been an added cost to you. For example, there's one job we quoted, we realized that the customer assumed we were going to do the work at night, and we're like, no, we said daytime, but we charge time and a half for night work. So now we're in this pickle. It's like, okay, well, should we charge an extra 50% on the labor now that we're forced to do this at night? So at least you have a way of being able to do that. Usually at the end of the terms, there's a general section. This includes a termination clause, assignment clause, a force majeure clause, which is like what happens if there's a hurricane or a tornado, a choice of form, like where if this goes to conflict, where this is going to be held, or where we're going to work this out, and then severability and survival, and then of course a waiver. These sections here, and I encourage you, this is really important, guys. Don't cheap out on this. Hire a lawyer to review your terms, and I'm just highlighting here usually what those typical terms include. But at the end of the day, I strongly recommend to you to have a lawyer review these, because the numbers are big, and if it goes sideways on you, it's going to cost you a lot. This is where, I know as painful as a lawyer is to hire, this is where you need to do it. By the way, that you can use the same terms on residential or commercial. It doesn't really make a difference. So it'll help you on the residential side. So let's get into product and design here. Trees is the big one for commercial. It's the most crowd pleasing, especially when you use a style like this one in the photo. Things that you need to consider are where the power supply is, how accessible that tree is. Some trees are pretty difficult for the bucket to get inside to the trunk because it hasn't been pruned in 20 years. Don't make your installers hate you, and make sure that the tree can actually be done and they can get the bucket to where it has to go. And also too, you want to keep your installers safe and make sure that the accessibility is good all the way around it. Yeah, it's safe in terms of also the power, where hazards in terms of where power lines are. Just make sure that they can keep a safe distance from those, that you're not asking for the impossible. If you need to hire flaggers, hire flaggers. It's an add-on cost. The customers will understand if they really want that tree done. They don't want your equipment or you hit by a passing vehicle. So quite often make space. Make sure that it would consider vandalism. Some of these commercial projects can be in pretty dodgy neighborhoods. So you may or may not want to decorate the trunk or something that's being able to be reached from the ground. So just keep that in mind. And then also make sure that the quantity of product is accurate. Again, if you're off and the picture looks way different from what you promised them, or the tree looks way different from the picture that you promised them, I should say, you could be on the hook for adding more lights. This goes along with the time to install, especially with equipment. Equipment takes a long time to, especially if you're moving it around a lot. It usually takes a little longer than you think. So put in a little bit of a buffer in there. Also consider if this is going to be a seasonal or year-round installation. Just so you know, in case you don't know this already, we do sell a product that stretches up to 20% as the tree grows. So this is a great option if the customer wants to enjoy them year-round, as in this picture here on the left. Canopy wraps, obviously these are less costly than trunk and branch wrap, but they still look great, especially when you're doing a whole bunch of trees. And again, consider the power supply, how accessible it is. You may not need to use a lift here. You might be able to get away with using a long pole, like a carbon fiber pole with 30 feet long, even 50-foot long, and very carefully maneuver the lights around the trees that way by using a light feeder hooked on at the top. Again, being careful with the hazards. Carbon poles are very conductive, so make sure there's no power lines around. And make sure that the branches will support those lights in strong winds, that they won't slough off the tree. I'll give you a story. There's a tree that was decorated at a mall that the lights sloughed off of, and there's a lawsuit happening right now because it was near a bike path and an e-scooter went by, hooked a string, and the driver of the e-scooter on the bike path had an accident. So there's a lawsuit happening with that. So just, make sure those lights don't fall out and start hooking on people and vehicles if you're going to be decorating strings and canopy wrap near roadways or bike paths. If there is a chance the lights could come out, maybe there's an option. Another option, maybe instead light that tree with ornaments or floodlights. These are pretty budget friendly, for in this tree here, there's maybe like, I think there's like 20, I think there's 25 ornaments in this tree. Way cheaper to light that tree with ornaments than it is with like a whole bunch of G30s or mini lights in there. But it also looks fully decorated. So great option. Again, consider the accessibility. Again, consider the time. It usually takes about 20 to 30 minutes per unit, which includes running the extension cord between all the pieces and maneuvering the equipment around. But make sure that that attachment for those pieces is reliable, whether if you're hooking on a floodlight or hooking on an ornament, make sure it is not going to fall out in the strongest winter winds that you could ever expect. I've had a ornament fall off a tree or rolling down a busy street before, so don't let that happen to you. Buildings is another option for decorating commercial spaces. This is easy option, especially if it's a ferrous material and you can use magnets. But it gets tricky when things become non-conventional, like like a certain cladding and certain rooftops get a little weird. You really need to go up there and test the product and how it attaches. So just be aware of that. Some commercial buildings have some really interesting roof lines. Also, make sure that you've considered your power limitations. As you know, when lights are brand new, they consume about 1 amp for every 100 feet. And as the lights age, in about 4 years of time, that gradually increases to double or 2 amps for every 100 feet. So that means that you will yeah, so that's why we tell people to limit your runs to 250 feet per SPT2 plug. 250 feet starts off at 2.5 amps, but in about 4 years' time, that will double to about 5 amps, which is your safe limitation on those plugs. Those plugs are certified for 8 amps, but of course, you never run to the limit, and you want to keep a 30% safety buffer below that. Obviously, fall protection, make sure it's there and have a fall protection plan in place. Ensure that you've got a season. Oh yeah, also consider if the job is going to be seasonal or year round. That might impact how the lights are going to be fastened. Magnetic clips work really well. Glue works well too if you need to use a glue gun, but those will fail after some time if it's left up year round. Adhesive clips are a good option. They are designed for year round use, but they don't come off very easy. Test a small area first, but because they don't come off easy, make sure the customer knows that. Those adhesive on those clips have been known to pull paint off at times, so just be careful with that. Illuminated sculptures. This is a massive opportunity, and these are very high impact. They draw crowds. They attract other traditional decor opportunities. As you can see here, this was a marquee sign that was sold, but this property also has, I think it was 25 trees decorated in trunk and branch wrap as well. So there's a lot of opportunities that come with it. That's why I say it has this flywheel effect. If you sell one of these, there's a good chance you're going to be doing a bunch of other stuff as well. We make them out of aluminum, and we do that because they don't go rusty, and they're lightweight for moving around. We also use a 24-volt DC lights on them that are epoxy LEDs. They're a little bit more durable, just because these are expensive pieces, and there's a lot of them that go in there. And also things that you want to consider when you're selling these is that they are storage can be an issue at times. So figure out who's going to store it, and maybe you want to charge extra for that. Also consider where the power supply is going to come from, and just make sure nobody's going to take one of these ornaments and go roll it down the parking lot. Make sure it's anchored really well. So again, make sure that they've got that they're not going to be vandalized. I'm just going to share with you a new feature that we have on these. Let's see here. I'm going to share this. This is a new feature for, we introduced augmented reality into our product page for these lighted sculptures. Andre made this for me here, so I'm just going to play this here for you. So if you go to our store, there's a section under commercial and public spaces, and you'll go into there. When you navigate down, there's a few options here where we show these lighted sculptures. He's going to choose a saber-toothed tiger, and there's a section here where it says view your space. So he's going to click on that, and he's going to go outside. You can do this too. You can go outside to a space, get it on your camera, scan the space, and put that saber-toothed tiger in that space. And now you can use that and take a screenshot of that and send that to your customer and show them this is what it's going to look like. You can walk up to it, you can walk around it, and show it from different angles. It's a really cool feature to help sell lighted sculptures. We got more of those coming out. We got predetermined designs ready, and if you want a custom design as well, we can do that for you too. So general considerations, if the budget's tight, I recommend lighting a smaller area very well. It's way more effective than thinly lighting a large area. Again, you want impact. You want adequate power for those areas, and consider about your traffic management plan as well. If there's a chance of somebody getting injured from a passing vehicle. Start that process early. You need to start now, to be honest. Most budgets are set in Q1 and Q2. When it comes to illuminated sculptures, if they're generally, we're looking at 3 to 4 month lead times if you want to try to sell those. The marquee signs are a little faster, about 6-week lead time. And then if you want custom lights, patterns, lights doing funny things, or unique things, we can get custom colors and patterns for you as well with about a 3 to 4 month lead time. Destination displays. These are long-term relationships that you need to build. Discuss, who's designing, who's installing them, or is this going to be simply a consulting agreement where they have their own installers and you just are the expert that comes in and helps them choose the right product, what to decorate, and how it's decorated. Consider that if you get one of these destination displays, they can take a lot of manpower if you are responsible for the installation. If they tell you that they only want it installed during the month of November, that's going to implicate your current customers, because all of a sudden you're going to have to pour all this manpower on one customer and give up a ton of current customers. So just keep that in mind. You might need to hire for it. And also too, you can come up with a plan for them that is good for 3 to 5 years. They like a long outlook. Sell them on I just don't sell them on it. Of course, we're talking about feelings. Communicate to them the feeling they're going to get and their visitors are going to get when these lighted sculptures are installed on that property. They make awesome photographic moments, Instagram moments. People use these on their Christmas cards. They attract a lot of attention. You can even put a little hashtag sign up in front of it as well to be included in those photos. Lift access and ground support is always an issue. Again, just make sure that the ground can support it, so it's not suspended slab. Doing these large destination displays is also very good for your brand. If you can tell somebody that you've decorated this really well-known property that they may have been to before, you're going to get a lot of buy-in with other commercial customers. When you're installing these projects, just make sure that you've got that power planned well in advance, because permits and electricians are typically involved. Make sure that you are being smart about your extension cable. Like if you got a big tree to power, start off with 12 gauge, you can branch it off to 14 gauge, Maybe you need to go to 16 gauge to go to even more trees, but don't go backwards. You should never power like 16 gauge and then put a bigger gauge wire on after that. So it always goes from the highest gauge wire to the lowest gauge wire to the highest gauge wire, which is the thickest wire to a thinner wire. Your destination displays need a very strong and skilled leader. So assign one person to it, get them to own that project, and be responsible for it from the beginning. Then you can put a bunch of newbies on that project and still get the desired outcome. But you need one person who knows what they're doing. And then you can divide those people up. I like to divide and conquer. So quite often it's pretty what's the word I'm looking for? It's pretty evident that one person is a very analytical thinker. I would give that person the responsibility for powering all the areas. They can very thoughtful and methodical and can think that through that process. There might be one person who's very meticulous. That would be a good person to assign to trees. They do all the trees on the property. Maybe there's another person who's good at illuminated sculptures and they've done some before. I would obviously assign them to that. And then maybe there's a big ogre on your team who loves going up ladders and working at heights. Then they'd be a good person to assign to roof lines. So everybody's got their strengths, and I tend to assign the jobs to meet those strengths. Of course, if they finish early, they can go help somebody else, and you tend to get really good efficiency from your jobs this way. If there's a person who's really strong at lifts, only put that person on lifts. And then, of course, an organized removal is essential. If you're not organized during that removal process, it's going to be a nightmare next year when you go to install it again. So very, very important. All right, other gotchas, things that I've learned along the way. Okay, here's somebody driven a lift onto an area that couldn't support it and the concrete broke away, or I'm not sure what happened there, but not a good situation. Hope you don't have to experience that. I have, unfortunately, many times. Overhead decor, you do not want this stuff falling down, guys. If people can get hurt, make sure those attachment points are incredibly strong and reliable. If you need engineering involved, you can do that. The municipality will often require that. Again, lift ground stability needs to be really strong. And quite often I'll use that as a leverage to get the installation done early. I'll say to a customer, hey, you got this tree that needs to be installed with a lift. Can I do that in August? Because if I do it in September, October, once it starts raining, the ground's going to be too soft and I'm going to tear up your grass. And then now it's going to be a sod job. So quite often the customer will be like, yeah, no, that makes sense. Let's get this done in August. We won't plug it in, but you can come back later in November and plug it in. So that's a way to get jobs done earlier. And if you're running on suspended slab, you need to get written approval from the customer that it's actually going to hold that equipment and send them specifications and get it approval. If something bad happens or the concrete is damaged, you could be on the hook. Don't be afraid to say no, guys. I've said yes way too many times before, and it's cost me a lot of money. If there's a really unique project out there, or somebody wants some weird snowman that they want inflated on this really weird rooftop, and you haven't done it before, there's a good chance it can go sideways. Say no. If you really, really want to do it, there better be a really good reason. And then if you do decide to do it, pad it. If it's a high risk factor, add more padding to the job, because budgets can easily be blown on these what I call weird projects. Other tips are that you obviously using visual sales tactics, because at the end of the day, you're selling a look. So again, build that really strong gallery, build strong relationships. This is all about relationship building. You're not going to win many commercial jobs through Facebook and lawn signs, really. You need to get out there and start pounding pavement and knocking on doors and contacting people. If you want more commercial work, as I said before, just ask for more work, and quite often they'll give it to you. And the worst thing that you'll get is a no. But If you do get a no, start smaller. Being like, you know what? Instead of that big tree, what about this or this one entrance here? What if we just did that this year? And if you like the work, maybe next year we can add on. And that will help get your foot in the door. It'll help establish a relationship. It helps get them feeling good, which is another opportunity down the road. So in summary, we've talked about who the commercial customers are. We've talked about what they want, their pain points, how to win them. We've talked about the product considerations, including options for trees, roof lines, and the illuminated sculptures. Those are really great opportunities, everyone. And then there's the destination displays, if you ever get that opportunity as well. And then we talked about some of the things that I've lost lots of money on too. Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.